Welcome to the Unplugged series. Today's topic, automate your DR plan with Veeam Disaster Recovery Orchestrator. I'm joined today, Ernesto Pellegrino, CTO at Assurance IT, joined by two subject matter experts from Veeam, returning to the Unplugged series, Sean Simpson, and
Hello,
newcomer,
everyone.
Marty Williams. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So let's drive right into the agenda and get started. So,
Definitely.
so let's go
And
ahead
this should be a very interesting topic, I think, for everyone today.
from the beginning. All right.
There we
So
go.
here we go. Yeah. So just have to toggle a little through here, but I think we're ready to go.
We got it. Ready to go.
So the agenda today, let's drive through this action-packed agenda and understand why you should stay tuned for the next 30 minutes to focus in on why an effective DR plan is an essential risk mitigation strategy for any organization, one that could be very costly if ignored. So what we'll be covering in the next 30 minutes, we'll focus in on why disaster recovery orchestrator, focus in on the technology, understand the key capabilities, then drive into the orchestrator design and deployment tips led by Marty Williams. And of course, la pièce de résistance, as we say in French, drive into the UI, get a good demo into the product and understand how easy it is to implement and automate those DR plans. And of course, for all the viewers listening in today, if you have any questions, feel free to add them in the LinkedIn comments and we'll be addressing those questions at the end of the call.
And you really want to make sure you stay online for that demo because I feel like this
Absolutely.
particular deployment, Veeam Orchestrator, is a little hidden secret, a little gem within Veeam that most people don't get an opportunity to see. So you're in for a treat when we get to that demo.
Well said, Sean. Well said. That's exactly it, right? So as customers drive through that maturity process, right? Building that DR plan or looking how to replicate their data off to a secondary site, it's important that we drive into the product and leverage a product, a technology really that allows you to automate it and streamline those efforts. So we'll look at that over the next 30 minutes for sure and cover it through the UI. So
100%.
before we start, right, let's look at it at a 10,000 foot view, right? So what are the customer challenges and why, right? Business continuity should be one of the top priorities for all organizational leaders, right? And a response plan should be implemented in organizations of all sizes, right? Regardless the industry, and the organization should develop a response plan to deal with unexpected events related to one, natural disasters, example, hurricanes, earthquakes, or freezing rain, right? That's one of the reasons why. And the second events could be like a technology disruption, a loss of a data center, a data breach, or any IT security related incidents. So this is why. But the truth of the matter is that many organizations, they're not ready. They're not ready
Correct.
to deal with these unexpected events, right, Sean?
They
And we
think
see,
they're ready. They think they're ready. They have the boxes checked, Ernesto. But
yeah,
when it comes, how many times have you tested? That's the big question, right?
that's absolutely the big question, right? And why, right? Because it can be costly, complicated, and for sure it's a lengthy process, right? But
Yeah.
time is value, right? So we look at why, and it drives us into this topic that we're going to be discussing today: how we can leverage technology, how we can leverage Veeam Disaster Recovery Orchestrator to tackle these challenges, right?
Yep. And
And,
so many things in our life, to sorry to cut you off, but so many things in our life today are automated. So why shouldn't your disaster recovery plan, your process, your testing be automated as well? Get the most from the resources around you. And that's what Marty's going to show us in a little bit.
absolutely.
And I'll pipe in the key thing with Orchestrator is this slide you have right here, these 4 bullet points. Orchestrator can help with all of these, right? And this is where I really showed the shine of orchestrators. You can make Orchestrator simply that single pane of glass to orchestrate failover and testing of multiple different environments and make it easy where all you do is log into the portal and click a button and everything fails over and tests and goes into that compliance and retention goals, right? So not only does it test it, but it can test it pretty regularly on a schedule and show you a report. So Orchestrator kind of fits in the bucket to solve these challenges for you.
100%. And I think I'll take the words out of your mouth from, Marty and I work together a lot, Ernesto. And, we may be dating ourselves a little bit here, but the days of packing your bags and sending a couple thousand tapes to a data center for a week and working around the clock and recovering tapes and finding out your tapes were blank or you didn't have the information you needed, you can eliminate that
Yeah,
with this simple solution.
absolutely, right. It's not a set and forget type of approach. Although we want to automate it to get there, you need to regularly test and really automate those processes in order to be effective, right? And we'll look at that, how we can do that with the technology later on in the demo. But really good points. Leads us to the next point, and what are organizations struggling with, right? Couple of key points. IT environments, large. They're getting large, they're getting bigger by the day, and they're ever changing. The advent of the cloud, different virtual machines, different applications living in different environments. Organizations, they're struggling with it. We're talking to them on a daily basis, and those are one of the key challenges. And then when it comes to recovery, gentlemen, right, it's complex and it fails. So we need to test. It's critical. A lot of organizations really they put in place these DR plans that entail the status quo, what is today. But as your park, as they say, or as your infrastructure evolves, you need to put in processes in place really to add that new infrastructure to the DR plans and test accordingly, right? So they struggle with complex and fails because they are not putting tests in place, or they're not testing this process on a regular basis. And last but not least, DR planning takes time, right? As we said, and it takes cash. It takes cash and resources, right? It's very costly. So what we want to do today is really try to solve those issues, tackle these problems with Orchestrator, and we'll definitely look at how we can do that next. So Sean, I'm going to hand it off to you really to focus in on the tool itself. But before I do so, really for a lot of the viewers today that are watching the live, they're using Veeam Backup Replication. So where's the cutoff? Where do we move from Veeam Backup and Replication, those replication jobs, and having a DR plan within Veeam Backup Replication to Orchestrator?
Yeah, so I mean, the ability to sort of take it to the next level. It's a sort of the sports performance package on a race car. We're going to take our DR plan to the next level, and we're going to be able to really take the features and functionality with Veeam Backup and Replication and introduce it into the DR orchestrator to create a stress-free automated recovery and planning for any disaster. Now, one saying that always kind of stuck with me, and I think Marty could agree with me on this, is you're only as good as your last backup in our world. And unfortunately, when things kind of turn to a fire and rubble situation, the finger's going to get pointed to the people that are responsible for the backups and the people. Now,
Right.
you could go 365 days a year and no one ever question anything that you're doing, but that one day that the CEO, the CTO needs something and you can't produce it, your job's on the line. That's Sunday. That's game day from that perspective. And in today's day and age, um, it's not really if you're going to suffer a disaster, it's when. It's kind of like thinking about your personal information. If you think about your personal information, it's already on the black web. It's a matter of when it shows up. So we need to be proactive, and that's what we have to do with disaster recovery. And this is especially true with the increase in cyber threats like ransomware. No matter what type of disaster recovery plans themselves need to be thoroughly documented, tested. Now, something Veeam Disaster Recovery Orchestrator can help you automate. So we can reduce the risk, we can save time, and we can restore confidently. So we can give you the confidence that you need. So when you look here and you look at, obviously Veeam Backup and Replication, VMware CDP, Replica Backup, integrated storage with one-click recoveries, and then the ability to sort of use the features together like the instant lab and those sorts of things to really take your disaster recovery to the next level. With that being said,
Let me
Well
jump
said.
in here a little bit, Sean.
yeah,
So, some things that Disaster DR Orchestrator takes care of are part of the Veeam core product, right? So there's things inside of Veeam backup and replication that work whether I have Orchestrator or not. For example, we call it data labs. It used to be called Sure Backup and Sure Replica, where we can actually test recoveries of the backups or test recoveries of the replicas with that tool. And what it does is it spins up a VM, whether it's a backup or a replica, into an isolated environment. And we can test a few things. We can test a VM heartbeat. We can test a ping. And that's pretty much all it's going to do. And then say, yep, we were able to recover your backup and do these things. Where Orchestrator goes is it takes it to the next level. For example, I not only can ping the heartbeat and the IP address, but now I can also check to make sure the SQL port is up and running. I can check to make sure a certain login credentials can access that SQL server. And I can report on that through a nice templated PDF document and have that just sent to me in an email on a regular basis. So it kind of takes it to the next level. And then you add in the PowerShell custom scripts capability on top of that. And it really just, blows up what the functionality can do, right? So that's really where the add-on component is there from Orchestrator standpoint.
Yep.
Right. Well said, Marty, right? Like the slide shows, right? It's really about automating risk reduction, right? Automating those plans, tightening them up, and being ready for game day, as Sean mentioned, right? Being ready for that critical disaster in the advent. It does happen. You don't want to be scrambling. You want to be ready, and you want to make sure that we've tested it and drove it through testing, so we're ready for that situation. So, Sean, I hand it back off to you. Automated risk reduction. Can we speak a little bit about how it can help do that?
Yep. So similar to what Marty had mentioned, we have dynamic documentation. So automatically generate and create DR documents to prove readiness and compliance within Orchestrator. Automate the testing so we can perform zero impact DR tests scheduled or on demand. From that standpoint, application verification. So the ability to verify common enterprise applications and functions, like Marty mentioned with SQL, and expected, after a recovery. There's secure role-based control, so we can delegate specific individuals to have specific tasks and specific operations within DR Orchestrator. Talked about the instant test lab, utilize DR resources for patch testing and other situations. And then this is all wizard driven. So easily comprehensive DR plans for apps and sites automatically updates. So when you make changes, these changes are going to cascade throughout the entire application to provide you with, the necessary and the confidence that these changes have taken place from that standpoint, so that you can restore with confidence from that standpoint.
And that's the key component, right? Restoring with confidence, being able to, put in place the plan that in the advent you can click the button and make sure that it's been tested and we are going to be up, or you will achieve your RTO and RPO because you do have an effective plan in place.
Yep, and I live by the rule, and I kind of live by a rule that it might not always be true, but when you're prepared, 99% of the time it won't happen. It's sort of like being overinsured. It might not always happen, but I have a fire extinguisher in my truck, but chances are I'll never use it. Or that snowblower that you buy for the upcoming winter, you always say it's not going to snow for 5 years now. So that's my theory on things.
Unfortunately, it's not the case in sunny Montreal. The snowblower example has no relevance here in Montreal, but I get where you're going with it.
Yeah, you guys will get the snow, so you're better off having the snowblower than me.
We definitely need the snowblower. So it drives us into our next agenda topic, right? Veeam Disaster Recovery Orchestrator Design and Deployment Tips. When we decide to move forward and grow to that maturity process, to that next level, what do we need to think of? How do we need to plan for it? And is it a standalone product? Is it integrated with Veeam? Marty, I hand it off to you, maybe just to take us through this slide and let us understand how the components fit together.
Yeah, sure. So Orchestrator actually has a little bit of Veeam backup and a little bit of Veeam 1 built into it. So it can work and run as a standalone component. If you have no Veeam today, you literally could just build a Veeam Disaster Recovery Orchestrator, and Veeam Backup and Replication and Veeam 1 are part of that install. However, that's typically not the way we'd want to deploy it, right? Typically, I'm going to have a customer that already has Veeam Backup and Replication, and then I'm going to add Orchestrator on top of it. And what we typically see in the field is typically my Veeam Backup and Replication server is actually in my production site. So although this slide shows the Veeam Backup and Replication server in the DR site, which really is best practice of where it should be, there's reasons for why you'd put it source or target or production or DR site. But a lot of customers typically have it in the production site, and that's not a problem. The backup server can be in the production site, but my disaster recovery orchestrator server should be in your DR site. The reason being is that since it has some of those backup components in it, if my backup and replication server is in my production site and that becomes what we call the smoking hole, right, where that whole site is gone in a disaster and I've got nothing there, Orchestrator's got enough component pieces in it that it can actually orchestrate the failover and recoveries, even though that backup server is gone. It's got enough knowledge in it. So you really want your Orchestrator server built in your DR location, talking to your backup and replication server, talking to your vCenter, right? And typically, again, I'd have a vCenter for production and a different vCenter for my DR site. And that way there I can keep those separated in case I have a ransomware attack or something to that nature. They are a different login and different situations. So very good slide. Like I said, the only difference there is typically we see that VBR server in the production side, and that's fine. It works well either way. Again, there's reasons we can talk about and get into all different reasons why you'd have it one place or the other, but it's what we see. And then I have my orchestrator there. Now, the orchestrator server itself can be an all-in-one. Typically, again, you'd want to make sure you have enough resources. Maybe it has a separate SQL server, but that's really the only difference that I would have is if I wanted that separate SQL server for that orchestrator server. And it does run on top of Windows. So again, I need that Windows server component and then can have it. Otherwise, all of the other components it's going to use based on the infrastructure that's already there.
Awesome.
And as always, you can reach out to Ernesto's team and they can work with Veeam to help you, deploy the orchestrator, determine the best scenario for you, work with folks like myself and Marty who can even go deeper. And like Ernesto said, we might even have another live session where we even take a deeper dive into Orchestrator for those of you that, like I said, this is a kind of like the best kept secret within Veeam from my perspective.
No, absolutely right. It's all about growing that maturity process, right? Automating and reducing risk, and leveraging a tool of this nature allows you to be able to, again, we keep on repeating about planning. Right, it's all about planning.
Well, I don't think you can say it enough because even in your personal life, sometimes people don't plan, right? Like they laugh at me. One time, my house got struck by lightning, right? And I'm walking outside with these big yellow cases, and the fireman's asking me what I'm doing. I said, "This is all my important documents." He's like, "Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Where's your family?" Their family's still in the house, but I got the documents.
We don't see that too often.
That's the mind of someone in this business.
We plan, man. We plan.
Yeah.
So let's jump into the demo, the UI. Get to understand really how it automates and how those plans can help you save time and save you money. So I will toggle the screen over to Marty. 1 second here.
Thanks, Ernesto.
No problem. Here we go.
Come in. There we go. Very good. Cool. So this is the dashboard. When I log into Orchestrator, I'm going to see this view right here, which is basically just my dashboard on what's going on, right? Now, there's different login levels inside of Orchestrator and different roles. So I'm logged in as an administrator, so I see everything and I can modify the plans And then I can actually break those plans down to help desk staff, or even different divisions of the company, where maybe I want the HR department to run their own plans and their own testing, and I can give them access to just their specific areas. But then as an admin, I see everything and I can modify it. So a lot of times when I'm inside Orchestrator, really where I'm going to spend my time is in my orchestration plans, right? So everything is built with an orchestration plan to say what VMs are in there, what jobs from the Veeam backup server would be in here. And then I can set those plans up. So you'll see my top one here, my tier 1 plan, which is a replication plan, is scheduled to run automatically on Mondays and Thursdays. So every Monday morning and every Thursday morning, this plan runs. And what it does is it's like I said before, it boots up a virtual lab, it boots up my Active Directory server and my SQL server, and it's going to verify that those servers are up and running inside that virtual lab. So they get a NATed IP address, not accessible to my customers or to my users, and it's just accessible inside the plan itself, and then it verifies everything's running. So if I look at this, I can see it processes the VM, right? So I can scroll down through here and it's going to show me exactly what the plan did, right? It's looking at the existence of a restore point. It's looking at the existence of the replica VM. And then as it goes through that, the next thing it will do is look at the heartbeat and check to make sure that the VM actually is up and running from a VMware tools perspective. And then we can verify the SQL port, right? So I can verify that I can actually connect to that SQL server on SQL port, right? And then the last one is to verify the database. So this actually uses SQL credentials to make sure that I can log in to SQL Server. And then from there, I could put some custom testing in, right? So this is the canned core pieces that are inside of Veeam that I don't have to have any special knowledge or anything of. I just need to know the credentials and it'll test these things. I could, from there, add a script to say, not only access the SQL Server, but maybe access this table and give me some data back, right?
This is almost
really where
like,
the core pieces are.
I was going to say, Marty, they always say it's better to make money while you're sleeping. So this is invaluable, right? You're kind of testing your DR plan while you're sleeping.
Exactly.
You wake up
exactly. Right. So when I wake up on Monday morning and I come to my office with my cup of coffee, I can get my report to see, did this actually work and what happened? And I'm going to go show you what the report looks like, right? So this is one of my plans. This is a replication plan. So this plan, actually, if you look at the start here, it's this job and it says RPL. That's a replication job. Now, this is a snapshot-based replication of Veeam. We can create a CDP policy as well. So if I have CDP with Veeam doing replication, I can actually do a plan with CDP. And then I've got another plan that is actually recovery, right? So this is a backup job that's actually doing a recovery of an Oracle VM, right? And so I'm going to do the same thing here, except that I'm going to check the Oracle port and log into the Oracle server, right? But other than that, it's the same idea.
I guess too, Marty, one
right?
question, just briefly, you might hit on this, but what about like a hybrid type of an environment with AWS or Azure? Can we use Orchestrator to, test those applications?
We totally can. We totally can. So the other thing I can tell you is right now I'm looking at a scope of plans, and these scope of plans is all for SketchLab. Now, Sketch is my nickname. SketchLab is everything that's in my home network. I could change my scope. And I've got some other scopes in here. For example, I've got an AWS scope, and that AWS scope is managing Veeam backup for AWS. And in this situation, I've got a couple of things here where I'm actually replicating EC2 instances and RDS instances from AWS West to AWS East. And then these plans actually manage failing those over from that West to East zone. So again, I don't need to know anything about my AWS infrastructure. I don't need to know my Veeam backup for AWS. I just need to know I can log into this portal. And like I like to say is like, for example, my wife. My wife's not an IT person. She's pretty smart, but she's not an IT person. I could give her login credentials. She could log in, click that plan, and fail over that environment if need be.
Right. That's a great point, because that could be part of your plan. because we can't assume that the individual that knows every detail is going to be available during a disaster.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, we used to say that's the person that walked outside and got hit by the bus, but how are we going to recover?
Exactly.
And that's
exactly.
great to your point. Anybody can do this.
Yep. So here's the PDF document that would come in my email, right? So this is for that tier 1 plan, and it shows here what my target RTO and RPO is, right? So my target RTO is 20 minutes. My RPO is 7 hours. And again, that's pretty on the high side for a replication job, but just in case I've got a bunch of other stuff going on. It tells me if I'm meeting my RPO and RTO, what server version I'm on. It tells me where the orchestrator server lives. It lives in my Ashburn, DC, right? It's going to show me what time zone I'm in, right? So most of my lab is running Pacific time because I share it with a guy on the West Coast. I've got a couple of warnings and some errors here, right? So it tells me how many licenses I've used. Did I meet my RPO and RTO? Yes, my RPO was met. VM's not meeting the RPO. Was successful, which means I didn't have any that didn't meet my requirements, right? I do have a warning there that there's something wrong with my job of my Active Directory server, because again, for me to test Active Directory, I actually replicate Active Directory as part of this plan. Right. So here it kind of giving me more of the timestamps of when everything happened, right? This one actually ran in the afternoon. And then I see that I've got an error, right? So there's actually an error here for this virtual machine, which is my my Active Directory server. And what I'm going to come down to is see, this is all of the steps. So when I look at the plan, and I showed you the steps over here, off to the right. So these are the steps. What's happening here is it's showing me those steps in detail in this report. And I can see as I go down through these steps what was successful and what wasn't. And you'll notice in this case, there was an error that everything looked okay until it went to power on that VM.
Right.
When it went to power on that VM, there was a parameter error of the wrong type. So for some reason, that VM, even though it replicated and the replication's fine, there's something going on in that vCenter environment that would not have let this VM power on, right? So now I'd want to go fix that, because if I had a true disaster situation, this VM wouldn't power on, and I need to fix that, right? So sometimes it's a positive and it's great, everything worked. Other times it's like this, hey, I need to go figure it out and figure out why this VM did not power on in my disaster recovery location, because there's something wrong with my host.
Well said, Marty. Well said. Because you don't sorry, Sean, I cut you off there, but really you don't want to start looking or tackling these problems during the event, right? So
correct,
giving you the tools, giving you the resources necessary to take them on a day-to-day basis to be ready for that event really tackles a lot of, puts a lot of those check marks on your recovery plan and facilitates the situation.
And like Sean said, back in the day, when we used to do recoveries from tape and you'd take days and stuff like that, and you'd go to do this test, and then you'd find this problem. And then when's the next time you can try to solve that problem? Well, the next quarter, when we would do another DR test, we would figure out what happened to that, right? Whereas here now, I could go back into Orchestrator and run that test manually. And what I can do with Orchestrator is I can leave things up and running, actually. So what I would do is actually change the plan to say, leave this up and running so that I can determine why this VM did not start and what the whole problem was. And then I can go fix it and then run the test again without having to have it delayed, right? So
it's a great example, because you save so much time with the automation of the testing that you can just focus on the concerns.
Correct.
As opposed to troubleshooting.
Exactly.
Like you said, getting back to it.
Getting back to it. Exactly. Right.
Because you'll never get back to it, unfortunately, because it's just like anything in life.
Yeah. Right.
So,
production's king, right? That's how they make money. They just want to check the box a lot of times. Yeah, we tested it. Move on.
Done. Move on to the next project.
All right.
So we're coming to the 30-minute mark. So I guess we're going to wrap up really with the slide that we saw earlier, why organizational struggle. So, thanks for tuning in for 30 minutes, right? And staying with us throughout the the presentation. But really, I think we did a great job today tackling these key points, right? As Marty mentioned in the demo, the environments are large, they're complex, cloud, internally, production sites. So we addressed that. It's ever changing. We did a great job there. Recovery is complex and it fails. We saw how those automated features allow us to address those key points, how technology allows us to get to the next level of maturity. And last but not least, we mentioned DR plan takes time. It takes resources, and having, all those people in the room, taking all that knowledge from those subject matter experts and automating it into a plan where it has regular testing and regular cadence allows you to save time and save resources. So I think we did a great job tackling those struggles with the conversation today and with the demo that Marty provided us. And I think, organizations looking to mature their process are at a better stage right now and should definitely look into Veeam Orchestrator to help them move to that next level.
Definitely.
So that's the wrap. I will end with this. So a little bit about Assurance IT. You can definitely leverage Assurance IT as a service provider for your tier 1 replication. Allows you to move your data center from a CapEx to an OpEx model, and we help you with disaster recovery as a service. And of course, one of the key struggles is resources. We are business continuity experts to support your DR initiatives. So that's what Assurance IT can help your organization do and move that maturity process, the maturity model with your DR plan. And what's next? Well, what's next is the next Untapped feature. We are looking to go live September 13 at 12 p.m. Eastern. And Sean, what will we be covering?
We'll be looking into the 3-2-1 rule with Veeam Cloud Connect Backup, how you can get a second or third copy of your data off-site in the event that there's a problem, a concern, ransomware, be able to recover and continue your normal operations. So we look forward to that next topic, as well as I hope everyone out there else will join us and continue to learn about Veeam and go down this great road of how you can, better your plans, better your testing, as well as make sure you're covered.
Awesome. Thank you again, gentlemen. Sean, always a pleasure. Marty, welcome to the Untapped series, and thank you for taking the time today, and look forward to the next conversation, gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye now.